Hey there, this is Unmesh from PiXimperfect. How you guys doing? I hope you're having a great day and making it an awesome one. Welcome to another Patreon-only Q&A session. And by the way, I've been doing this for about 2-3 years now. A lot of these, but I never made it public. So this one is going to be the first one that's going to go officially on the PiXimperfect channel. I thought of doing this because a lot of questions that come from our members, you guys members, if you're listening, thank you so much for your questions. A lot of questions that you submit can be helpful to a lot of other people as well. A lot of us have the same questions. So this might help you with not only the questions or the topics that we're going to cover, but also on problem solving abilities in Photoshop. This mic is a little up. It needs to go down. By the way, this video is going to be very uninterrupted. There are not going to be any cuts or attempts to make it shorter. This is just a casual chat. Treat this as a podcast. All right. So what I do with my Patreon members or members, especially awesome people, if you're listening. So if you have been following our Facebook group, Patreon only Facebook group, you would know that whenever we do a Q&A, we tell you way in advance, 5 to 6 days in advance that we are doing it. And we ask you to submit your question and the instructions and everything is right here. So the last one I posted at February 5 and we're going to answer all your questions. Sometimes it might be limited to 20 questions, 20 first questions, but then again, it usually, you guys give me lesser questions than that. We have 15 questions, and sometimes even if the questions are 21, 22, 25, we answer it all. Anyway, so let's go through all of these. So the first question comes from Jacob. He says, I love doing non-destructive edits in Photoshop. This means doing adjustments in new layers so that I still have the original image and I can also tweak these adjustments later. There are, however, few things for which I didn't find non-destructive way of doing them. Clone patch tool, liquify tool, and frequency separation. For all of these tools, you basically have to make flattened new layer of the pixel data and work on it. This, however, means that tweaks on your underlying layer, that is dodge and burn layer, will not be visible anymore because you have hidden it under hard layers. Any tips on how to avoid that? Well, whenever you're merging a layer, whenever you're creating a stamp visible layer, it is just not possible to make it absolutely non-destructive. It is just not. It's the way that things work. However, there are a couple things you can do to make it absolutely non-destructive. They might slow down your process later or make your computer slow, but it is to an extent possible. I'm going to show you a few examples. So it's a kind of a workaround, if you might ask. So here, let me see if I have an image for you. Let's say Jacob. There you go. So if you were to do frequency separation, let me just quickly discuss frequency separation. So you have the layer with the color information and the layer with the texture information, right? In between, you can just take away the layer, delete it, or create a new layer. So you have a little bit of non-destructive ability in frequency separation. When it comes to liquify though, let me show you how you can achieve it. So let's say we did a little bit of curves in there, okay? Let's go a little more extreme so that you can see the difference. And on top of that, let's say, created a black and white adjustment layer. Made it absolutely extreme. This is now a black and white image and made it shiny, interesting, whatever. Now, on top of that, I feel that maybe I need to do some liquify on it. Consider this in a situation where you have a lot of layers, let's say 1,000 layers. On top of that later, in the very end, I would recommend using liquify. Why, though, you might ask? Well, first of all, we need to create a stamp visible layer. Control Alt Shift and E, Command Option Shift and E on a Mac. Once you create that stamp visible layer, if you apply liquify on it by going to filter, and then first of all, to apply liquify, what do? We convert that into a smart filter, right? So convert it into a smart filter so that we can change the values later. So you might say, Unmesh, even though this is a smart object, if I want to change the layers beneath it, well, liquify won't work, right? Well, let me show it to you. So now if I go to liquify and I make little changes in here. So let's say we made little changes with a forward warp tool. Something is not working here. I don't know what that is. Maybe I turned on show backdrop. Let's just turn it off. Okay. Let's restore all. It looks crazy. Anyway, let's do some extreme changes here. Now, I don't recommend changes like this, but just to show you, hit OK. Okay. Now we have done these changes. After doing these changes, liquify looks nice. Everything looks nice. Now I feel that I need to make it colorful. I don't like black and white. What do I have to do? Would I just again delete the liquify thing, turn off the black and white, or tweak it, or again come back to liquify and again do liquify? No, you don't have to do any of that. Here's what you do. Just turn off the liquify, okay? On top of black and white, create one more stamp visible layer, Control Alt Shift and E. Now convert that into a smart object. And all you gotta do is that this thing that you turned off, just copy the smart filters from this one to this one. Now the same liquify will be applied right here. It should happen, right? Why did not happen? Okay. It should have happened. Let me go here. So this was the liquify, all right. Okay, if I copy the liquify here, it should apply to that. I think it should. Yes, I think it has applied right here. Now if I turn that off, liquify is not there. What the hell? If I go to liquify, double click on it. Like, really, what the hell? Is this a Photoshop error? Maybe it is a Photoshop error because this is Photoshop version about Photoshop. Let me see. This is 22.1. If I go to Photoshop 2019, let me close it for you. So let me close this Photoshop. No. If I go to version 2019, this I might have just cracked upon an error. Now, in a regular video, I would cut this out, but I'm not cutting this out. I'm coming across errors and let's see if we can fix it. So this shouldn't happen. Usually when I copy a liquify filter from one place to another, it usually just copies perfectly. But in this case, I don't know what is happening. Anyway, so now we are starting Photoshop CC 2018, I guess. This one is 2018. All right, in this case, it should work. So let me just quickly open that photo again in Photoshop. Okay, very old Photoshop. Looks very old. Anyway, so similarly in here, if we create a curves adjustment layer just like this, okay, and then on top of that, if we create a black and white adjustment layer, all right, now we create a stamp visible layer at the top, we convert that into a smart object, and then we apply some liquify on it, filter, liquify. Now inside of liquify, we do make little changes here and there. So let's make the brush a little larger, and we just made her face a little thinner. That's what we did. We hit OK. All right, looks pretty good. Doesn't look pretty good, just going extreme a little bit. Now, let's say you wanted it to be color and not black and white. You would turn that off. You would just go to black and white and maybe decrease the opacity. You wanted a little color on it. So maybe I'm going to set the opacity to 70 and then create another stamp visible layer. Convert that into a smart object. Now all you have to do is to copy the liquify from this one to this one. And it should work. Yes, see, it worked. What a sigh of relief to my heart. I gotta tell you that. It's a Photoshop error in Photoshop 2021. We just discovered one. So that's how you do it. Sorry about the Photoshop error. Take it up with Adobe. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. Let's see what questions we have. So those are the couple things you can do to keep things non-destructive. You can create a smart object and just copy the filters around when you merge or create a stamp visible layer. So that's the advantage of smart objects. You can copy the filters around. Why? Because they are smart filters. All right, let's move on to the next one. The next one is from Jack. Jack says, "Hi Unmesh, I would like to know how to get transparent effect of water on living subjects, person or animal. I found some examples on YouTube, but I prefer a tutorial from Unmesh. Is it possible? Thank you very much, and again, well done for all your lessons." Well, Jack, what do you mean when you say transparent effect of water on living subjects? Do you mean you want a wet face? Or do you mean you want a face made of water? So you need to be clear on that. And that's fine. Let me know. As soon as I'm done with the video, you can just create a post on this Patreon only group, or you can just tag me in this comment and let me know. However, I'll just assume that you want to create a wet face. It's not easy to do, to be very honest. And you can spend all the time in the world to look for water overlays, water droplet overlays, and try to drop it on the face with some blend modes, and it's not going to work. I've tried everything. The easiest thing to do here, Jack, let me tell you, is to just create a composite. Just fake it. Just cheat. Okay. So here we have two photos. So this is the photo. Let's just open that up in the old Photoshop because that's trustable. The new one, Photoshop, ditched us. It just really made a fool out of ourselves anyway. So here we have our old Photoshop and here we have this photo. Let's say you want a little wetness on his face, right? You want a little water droplets on his face. So instead of trying to paste in some overlays in here, I would recommend what you do is just composite, man. So to make it simple, to make the video a little shorter, I'm just going to take away all the colors so that it's easy for us to do. You can always apply that duotone later. It really doesn't matter. Anyway, we have lots of videos on color matching. Now, we're just going to drag it and drop it. Now, he, as you can see, has a wet face. So we're going to make it smaller. And you already might have guessed what we're going to do here. Just align both the faces. Now, to align, you can also decrease the opacity. That helps a little bit. Okay, now you can take his face and just start aligning it. You can adjust it from both sides, top, bottom. Okay, so I'm going to keep it just like this. All you got to do is to increase the opacity and then hold the Alt key, the Option key, click on the mask button. This creates a negative mask. Then you take the brush. Let's make it bigger. Make sure it's a soft round brush. Okay, let's make it a little larger like this. And we're just going to paint in with white as the foreground color. Just paint in right here. Now I know what you're thinking, the colors are not looking nice. It's black and white, so we need to take away the colors. So I should have pressed Ctrl-Shift-U by rasterizing it and then doing all that. But you can also just create a hue saturation adjustment layer. Hold the Alt key, the Option key, click on the line between these two layers to clip it, to limit it just to the subject, or you can also click on this button. You don't have to clip it in this case as the whole image is black and white, but yeah, in case you were just adjusting the color. Anyway, so just paint on that area with white. You see the wetness coming in, pretty nice. So that's the only way to cheat it and get it. You gotta cheat a little bit in Photoshop. All right, so now the flow is low. Keep in mind, you can go with a higher flow if you wish. Now I know what you're thinking. We are just removing all his facial features. Wait, we might be removing a little bit. That's okay. But as you can see, we're getting a little wetness here and there. That's the only way you can do it. Now what we have to do, we have to clean this up. So with the brush gone to black as the foreground color, we just cleaned it up. Just like this. You want his original hairline in here. Okay. Now if you, fortunately the colors are matching pretty nice. If they were not matching, I would create a curves adjustment layer. Click on this button. This would clip it as well and then make it darker or brighter to match it. But in this case, it's already matching perfectly. The other thing you need to do if you want to bring back those lines on the forehead is just make a copy of this, the background layer, bring it to the very top. All right. And you can change the blend mode of this one to overlay or multiply would work too. Let's try and multiply and hold the Alt key, the Option key, click on the mask button. Now I want to bring back this. So paint black, white in this area inside the mask. Now I still know what you're thinking. It's too dark. No problemo. You can create a curves adjustment layer and limit it just to this man. And then we're just going to brighten it up. We don't want to lose details. All right. Okay. Pretty good, but still something is missing. It's just too much. So select the man layer, the forehead crease layer. Decrease the opacity and just have it as much as it looks okay. All right, that much is okay. And there you have it, a super wet face, right? Look at it, man. So here's the before, here's the after. We got a wet face. I know it's a different face, but that's how we got to do, man. If you just try to paste in overlays, it's just not going to look okay. It's just not going to look all right. So you need to find a similar man with a similar lighting with a wet face. That's it. Easier if you have the model available, just ask him to wet his face and just take another photo. That would be an easier thing to do. Even if you are not on location, even if you are some other place, just take it, make a similar lighting using the lights in your studio, just take the photo and composite it. That's the easiest way to do it. If you try to do it with, let me just clean it up. Okay. If you try to do it with overlays, it's gonna take you ages, trust me on that one. I've tried it. Okay, There you go, that's how you do it. Let's move on to the next one. The next one is from Kayam. Hello Unmesh. Well, I should start calling myself Enmesh. Can you show how to do a newsletter in Photoshop from header to footer and totally finished with link like read more? Thank you very much. Well, thank you, Kayam, for this question. I really appreciate it. However, I would direct you to do this in Adobe InDesign, because InDesign is a software which is really made to create newsletters. Yes, you can do the design elements a little bit in Photoshop, but still, all of these software work together, Illustrator, Photoshop, and InDesign, to bring you a good design for a newsletter. But when it comes to contents like newsletter, and when you have to replace text and do stuff like that, I would always recommend using Adobe InDesign. So this is not a video to answer this question because it uses a different software. With Photoshop, it's a raster processing image. I don't know how to say it. It's a raster software, right? It generates raster images. So with Photoshop, it can get really, really difficult to create something like this because it will export it as a raster. Now, when you print it, it's not going to look good. So when it comes to printing content which has type in it, which has vector in it, I would always recommend using either, with vector, I would recommend using Illustrator. With, how do you say it? With newsletters, InDesign, because it has a lot of content. All right. Anyway, so it was not about printing, it was about newsletters. I would still recommend InDesign to do it. But if you want to do it in Photoshop, it's not going to be very difficult. You can simply just create whatever shape you want and then start writing on it. It's not rocket science. So you can go to File, New. You can choose whatever size you want. So you can do it on A4. You can do it on 2000 by 2000. You can do it on Art and Illustration. You can go 2000 pixels. And you can just simply create a headline. There's nothing more than that. Just create a heading. You can just type whatever you want. This comes with lorem ipsum, so you can just have a bigger text. And then you can have some content here, and then you can have some read more. Now, why I would recommend using it with, I'm sorry, this content right here, you can have something like minion, and the font can be this size. And then you can also have, the spacing doesn't look good, so you can have, first of all, let's set this one to 0 and the leading, let it set to auto. So you can have different content in here, and then you can just have read more, but that won't be clickable. Right? If you want a clickable read more, and if you want different features of that PDF, if you want to have some advanced features here and there, if you want to create a newsletter like that, hands down InDesign, okay? Because Photoshop is just exporting it as an image. Yes, there are some little options here and there, but it basically will export it as an image. So I wouldn't recommend Photoshop for creating newsletters. Okay. Now, the next question is from Marta. Marta says, "Hi Unmesh, I joined this group towards the end of January. Thank you for everything you share. I'm a portrait photographer and I get easily stuck with skin retouching, frequency separation versus dodging and burning. And if I use dodging and burning, you have several ways to do it. I find it overwhelming and difficult to know when to use which. Do you have a video that already explains this? And perhaps also an end-to-end process?" Yes, I have an end-to-end process video. You can really watch it from start to finish. Retouching from start to finish. PiXimperfect. All right, I think I have a photo. All right, so this is the one. This is a process, start to finish high-end retouching. I would highly recommend you watching this video. Bad pause. Okay, anyway, so this is the video I would recommend watching to you. So let me just copy it and comment on in here so that you have an easy access to that. Okay, the next question comes from Thomas. How would you put this jacket on this guy? So this is the jacket, this is the guy. I've tried cutting the jacket to pieces using warp, but I have trouble with the perspective of his back shoulder because it isn't square like his jacket. When I warp, I lose the shape of the jacket collar and it doesn't look natural. Well, what you have to use here is Puppet Warp. So if I open this, let me just open both of these in Photoshop, still using old Photoshop because the new one, Adobe, you got to do something about it. Anyway, just let's get rid of all this. Just realized the older Photoshop doesn't have close others feature. Anyway, let's drag this guy in. I wish I had muscles like him. Anyway, I was told, somebody told that some muscles, 95% of people on bodybuilding competitions, I'm talking about competitions with crazy monster looking like muscles, are on steroids. So I want to keep it all natural. I just want to eat healthy and do healthy stuff, do exercise. But I don't know whether I'll get to look like him, maybe next life. But anyway, so, well, let's go ahead and select it. So if I just select the background, I'll select most of it. Yes, press Ctrl-Shift-I, C, Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V. Now we have it. Ctrl-T. Let's first of all adjust it. Now I'm not converting it into a smart object just to save time. Okay, this doesn't mean that you get a leeway to just keep everything rasterized. Anyway, just make sure the jacket is this size. I know the perspective isn't matching, but that's not a problem, trust me. Okay, once you do that, you first of all make a copy, all right? Make a copy, have a backup always. Now, with the copy, let's place it where it would mostly be. Okay, cool. Now you can rotate it all you want, maybe a little bit. I'm gonna take the anchor point right here and rotate it from here a little bit, and then right click on it and then choose warp. And you can just bend it a little bit like this, like that. Okay, it's getting there. It's not perfect, but it's getting there. All right, good. We're getting that dashing kind of shape. The next thing we do is we adjust the arms and everything. To do that, you can go to edit and then there should be puppet warp. Okay, great. Now density, let's go for fewer points. First of all, and start creating some points. So here at the joints, create points at the joints, okay? At the ends and the places you want to just hold on to. Joints here. If you want, you can also create one on the shoulder. Also decrease the opacity to see where the jacket is, so you can just adjust it accordingly. Great. Now you can adjust the hand. Now it looks like a see-through jacket, isn't it? Pretty good, nice fashion. Okay, now we're gonna adjust the hand in here. Okay. Now I know it looks like a bent hand, but you can create one more point and just move the point over. I'm accidentally creating on areas where there are no points. So we're just gonna have to adjust it like this. Looks pretty good. Everything here looks okay. The jacket looks okay. We can bring this point a little up. Now you can take a little more time to do this. I'm just doing it very, very fast. You can also use liquify to do it. If you want to delete a point, hold the Alt key, the Option key, click on it to take that point away. Okay. So now, okay, that just isn't looking good. If I create a point in the inside, that might just work. Yes, it works. Okay, let's delete this point to create a point a little bit on the inside. It just works a little better. And now let's take this one up, and this one looks okay. Now you can really take the time to cover up the hands and everything and just mask in it out. Anyway, I'm just here to show you how to shape in the jacket. Okay. By the way, jacket is a good way to hide the fat. So whenever you get fat, I get fat sometimes. I'm a little fat right now. So jacket is a good way to hide the lower fat in there. Actually, all of the fat of the body. You will see a lot of people who have gained a lot of fat in the lockdown wear jackets. It really is a good way. But when it comes to summer, you usually have no option. And just don't listen to me. I'm just saying what's going on in my mind. Anyway, let's adjust this one properly as well. Okay. All right, that looks about right. Now, I know there needs to be a little bump here. Okay, good. Now we have it in shape. Now this area needs a little bump, so we're going to go to Filter, Liquify. So add that little bump in there. I don't know why Liquify doesn't have Scrubby Zoom. It really needs to have that. Okay, now you can also just adjust the other aspects of the leather jacket. I really did it very fast. So you can take all the time in the world to do it the way you want it happen, wanted the jacket to look. If you want just the subject as the background, you can choose show backdrop, and you can just choose the background, so only the subject shows up at the backdrop. So you can adjust it accordingly. Great. Now I've not made a perfect selection here at all. This is a fast job. Hit OK. Cool. Now to take the inside, you can create a mask, take the brush, and I'm gonna do a very fast job, guys. Forgive me for it. So here, that was not hard. Really, it wasn't. There you go. Done. Now you can take the time to create the shadows and do the additional details in there. But that's basically the gist of it. If you can go a little lower flow, maybe you can do a little bit of fakery in there. Okay. Now you need to really take the time to make a nice mask here. But you can just take the advantage of the dark inners as a shadow. So you can use that as a shadow as well. I'm going to increase the flow to about 50%. Okay, now let's do this side. Alrighty. Now this is really not a perfect job, but just to show you what can be done with all this. Okay, now when you zoom out, we really cannot tell. Look at this. We're almost done. Okay. Now you do need to create the shadows. These shadows are not looking okay. But that's how you get the jacket on the man. Really. Take a look at it. The light is matching as well. Everything is looking perfect. Now if I really want to hide everything, hide my mistakes, I'm just going to create a black and white adjustment layer. There you go. And then maybe change the blend mode to overlay to increase the contrast even more. No, that isn't looking okay. Anyway, that's a good one. And maybe you can also do a color lookup on top of that. I'm just trying to hide my mistake over here. Little mistakes here and there. Crisp, warm, or late sunset. Little things here and there. I'm just kidding, guys. Anyway, change it to soft light. There you get a little something. About this one, about 30-ish. And there you have a jacket on the man. If you think the jacket length is too high, you can always go in here to the jacket. And then you can press Ctrl or Command T and adjust it. Or you can also go to Edit and then Puppet Warp. And you can choose fewer points. And then create a point in here. Create a point in here. And just drag it up. Now make sure the other areas are not moving. See, the other areas moved a little bit. So you need to be cautious about it. Let's try again. Edit. Puppet Warp. We just want to move this area up and nothing else. You want to keep all of these areas the way it is. So you want to hold this down. Any area you want to hold down, you would just create a lot of points in there so that none of that area moves. Similarly, right here, we want none of this moving, just this area. And then you can take it up like this. Now, by the way, if you're being distracted by these points, you can just check this, uncheck this, show mesh. There you go. You adjusted, made it a little shorter, a little bit. Okay. Now I'm going to go to the mask because the mask looks awful after applying Puppet Warp. So we're going to go to the brush, make the brush a little smaller and just erase it away. There you have it, my friend. That's how to do it. Okay. So there you have it. I think this question came from Thomas. I hope I answered your question. All right. I did a very fast job of it. You can take the time to do a little better job than myself. I'm sure you'll do 100 times better than this. All right, we have a question from Theos Martins. Katie is our administrator here. She manages PiXimperfect Patreon family. And she, on behalf of Theos Martins, sent a question because Theos is not in our Facebook group. So he sent the question directly to me, to our Patreon messages. So it's posted here so that it is answered as well. So my question is about the modes of healing brush: normal, replace, multiply, screen, darken, lighten, color, luminosity. It seems easy, but I cannot see clearly the effect of most of them. The two first are easy to see, but the others seem to be those hidden and uncompressible things that we find inside Adobe products. Can you shed some light on this? I gotta tell you a couple things first. If you go to, let me just quickly create an example document for you so that it's easy for you to understand. So I'm going to create a new 2000 pixel grid in here for you, and let's fill it with 50% gray. All right. Now, when it comes to the regular healing brush tool, you see the blend modes. Only couple are usable. You don't have to use replace. It's useless. Absolutely. Normal is fine. Darken and lighten. These are the blend modes that you need to know. That's it. That's it. Trust me. Okay. Others are basically, there are better alternatives to do the use of other ones. But these are the ones. Let me quickly check whether the screen is being recorded or not. Yes, it is. By the way, this is my screen recorder, OBS. Anyway. So now we're going to take the brush and we're going to create a white point in here. Okay. Simple white point. And now we're going to create a dark point in here. Okay, now we're going to take the healing brush, the regular healing brush. Let's make the brush a little larger. I hope we can see it. Now, the blend mode is lighten. I'm going to paint in right here. Okay, wait, it's the regular healing brush, right? We're going to paint in, take a sample from the gray area and paint in right here. No matter how much I paint in the white spot, it is just not becoming gray. No matter how much I paint. I'm lifting the brush right now. It's just not becoming gray. I'm going to try again. Take a sample and paint. It's not, because the blend mode is lighten. However, if I paint on the dark area, it's just covered up. Okay. So what does that tell you? When you have the lighten blend mode selected, if it can lighten it, it will lighten. If it cannot lighten it, it'll just not paint there. So this white area is brighter than the sampled area already. Keep in mind, I'm going to repeat that again. It's brighter than the sampled area, which is the gray area. So we cannot make it lighter, right? We just cannot make it even more lighter. However, this black area, this dark area, is darker than the sampled area. So there is a possibility to make it lighter. So we take a sample by holding the Alt key, the Option key, click to take a sample. I'm sorry about the phone ringing in the background. It's not my phone. Anyway, you paint on in here and it becomes lighter, because there's a possibility of it being lighter. You cannot make this area any lighter than the sampled area because the sampled area is darker. So if it cannot lighten it with the sample, it just won't do anything. Next one is darken. It is the opposite. You take a sample from the gray area. You paint on the dark area, it just doesn't get any darker. Why? Because the sampled area is brighter than the target area. Makes sense? So if it cannot darken with the sample area, it won't do anything. But in this case, have a look at this area right there. Let me just open, let me open an application. The application is actually called, all right, this is the one, the spot on the mouse. It allows me, it's already running. Okay, so this is the application that allows me to focus on things. On Windows, it's a good application. It's a paid application though. Anyway, so have a look at this area. This area is brighter and we can darken it with the gray area because the gray area is darker than this. So when I take a sample, paint on it, it paints, but take the same sample, paint on the dark area, it doesn't paint. Okay, so that is the two important blend modes that you're going to use. Now, where are you going to use this? So let's say you're just removing blemishes from the face. Okay, and the blemishes that you're removing are darker than the surrounding areas, right? So if you take a sample from the good skin area and paint on the blemish, it'll only cover the blemish and not the other skin areas, no matter how much you paint there, right? It'll help a little bit. Or let's say your subject has a little bit of facial hair, right? And you want to remove that facial hair. You know the hair is black or dark, depending upon the ethnicity. So you would take a sample from here and paint on the beard. And only the beard string or the beard hair will go away, and the nearby skin won't happen to anything. The nearby skin won't be affected. Let's put it that way. All right. Okay, let's move on to the next one. The next one is from Lynn Sunshine Wilson Crow. Last time, Unmesh, you gave a tutorial for me on editing and getting rid of double chin. I have tried your exact method with this image, and it doesn't look good. Will you see what you can do and teach us how to get rid of, or at least modify the double chin on the man, and then maybe create more of the chin on the lady? Again, thanks in advance. Okay, let's look at this photo. Well, you can remove the double chin on the man. However, if you do, it'll be a completely different man. I can show you how to do it. It'll use the same technique, but trust me, it will be a completely different man. And that is something you do not want. Okay, so I'm going to do it on my new Photoshop because I'm more used to it. So let it launch. A couple of things you can do. You can do a little bit of dodging and burning to kind of soften it all out. But then again, it really takes away from the character of the man if you just remove the double chin in here. Yes, I can show you how to just enhance the chin with the lady, which I'll show. However, with the man, it can get a little challenging. So Photoshop hasn't opened yet. Okay, I didn't click properly. Anyway, I have that photo of you that you just posted downloaded, and let's hope that we can work on it pretty well. All right. I don't know, when you launch Photoshop on Windows, I don't know why people just don't pay attention to the Windows operating system. Black bars show up around the Photoshop loading screen, just as you saw right now. But with Mac, none of that happens. Guys, Adobe, what you guys doing? Anyway, so let's just drag it and drop it into Photoshop. And here we have it. Okay, so I wouldn't recommend removing his double chin, but I can quickly show you what will happen. Now, I recommend using the pen tool, but this is just what I'm showing for fun. So let's say you were to remove his double chin. Trust me, it'll be a completely different man. Okay, I'm going to put this on a brand new layer. I'm going to make a copy of this just in case. Now go to Filter, Liquify. Now I'm not going to create a smart object because that can take a little while. Anyway, in the backdrop, we're going to turn it on, and we want layer 1, which is at the top, the top part of the face. Layer 1 in front, not behind, in front. Okay. Now we're going to just push it in the rest of the areas. So make sure the forward warp tool is selected. Just have the right brush size and try to push it in. You know, it's gonna. You can really push in the double chin. Can do that, but it just won't look realistic. Trust me. Okay, that's okay. Hit OK. Now, if you're a fan of that, you can go ahead. Now, I know there are some hard edges. That's not a problem. You can create a mask here. Take the brush with, make sure that the brush size is the right size. With black as the foreground color, just with a soft round brush, just soften it all out. It's pretty good. It's no big deal here. Anyway, so that's how you do it. Oops, I accidentally erased extra. There you go. So here's the before, here's the after. We did remove it. If you are a fan of that, you can keep it. That's up to you. Now that really, if once we do it, it really just enhances his shoulder muscle. So if he's a fan of that, you can leave it right here. Or otherwise you can just lower it down using Liquify later. Now when it comes to enhancing her chin, you can simply create a curves adjustment layer. Just add some depth and definition to it. Just darken it a little bit like this. Okay, then select the mask, press Ctrl or Command I. Some of you might already have guessed what I'm going to do with this. And now with black as white as the foreground color, let's set the flow to about 5 to 6%. And then we are just going to paint in here. That's it. with a larger brush. Let's do it. Now, with high-end dodging and burning, you do take a little more time than this one, but I'm quickly gonna do this to show you what kind of a difference it makes. And after that, you can also do some liquify to make it even, to enhance it even more. So here's the before, here's the after. You have the enhanced chin. Now, of course, this is too much. You would decrease the opacity, slowly and gradually increase it to a point which looks okay to you. And there you go. Have a look. Have a look. Once you zoom out, there's more chin. There's no chin, there's more chin. There's no chin, more chin. Now, opacity is just too much. I'm going to keep the opacity at about 40. 40 was fine. So there's the prefer, no chin, more chin. Now, on top of that, you can just combine it with liquify to just enhance it even more. Anyway, I hope that answered your question, Lynn. Thank you so much for submitting your question. I really appreciate your support. The next question is from Jake Gilman. Jake says, hi, Unmesh. You went over an alternative way to get rid of unwanted saturation after using curves, other than setting the layer style to luminosity. I cannot find that video anymore. I was hoping you could show the other methods. Well, that video has one. I've actually shown it in a lot of videos actually, but let me just show this to you again. So Jake, for you, I have an image already. So let me just open that up in Photoshop. So just to demonstrate, let me again check whether this is recording. It's recording 41 minutes so far. Yes, it is. Okay. So to answer your question, if I create a curves adjustment layer here, and if I do some extreme, contrast in here to add some extreme dimension, it looks fine. It looks pretty good. But then again, there's a lot of reds in it. So if reds is the only color that is just going too much, you can take care of it, or you can also decrease the overall saturation. That's two ways. The way that you suggested was luminosity. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. In this case, it looks pretty fine. But if you choose normal, luminosity looks fine in this case. Here's the before, here's the after. It does look okay. But in some cases, if you choose luminosity, the color just desaturates just too much. So what do you do then if you want to keep the naturality of the skin, if you don't want to get rid of everything, every color? So simply create a hue saturation adjustment layer. If you think reds are too much, you would click on this hand and click on this area. Reds show up. Then you would increase the hue and the saturation all the way to the right to see which areas are being affected. Then you just make the target smaller, range of colors that are targeted, and then move it around. And just when the reds, these areas are selected, adjust it so all of the reds are selected. Then you can just soften up the edges of the range by these two outer sliders. Okay. Then bring the saturation and the hue back to 0. And then you decrease the saturation. That way only the reds go away. You can also control the hue of it. You can make it a little more yellowish. That's up to you. So that is how you only take away the reds. See? Now, you didn't want to take away the reds from the lips, so you can select the mask and take the brush with black as the foreground color. Just paint over here on the lips. Now make sure the flow is back high if you want that to happen. So that is the way to do it. It's too much red anyway. So let's go with the flow at about, let's say 20. And now let's paint with black in there. A little bit of red is fine. Just a little bit. Okay, so that's how you do it. So you took away all the reds. You can also take away all of the saturation, most of it. So let's reset it. You can also take away most of the saturation if that's your taste, the master saturation. But that's how I suggested on doing that in that video. The next question comes from Anand. Anand says, can you explain what exactly transparency shapes layer setting does? I know you used it in one of the videos, but maybe you can provide more examples to show what exactly it affects. To be really honest, transparency shapes layers is a feature that we seldom use. It is really not a very useful feature except in 1 or 2 cases. Somebody's driving a bullet in the background. Anyway, so let me show you an example. Well, it is what the feature says, to be honest. So let's create a new 2000 or 3000 by 3000. Okay, let's create a gradient. Let's create a gradient from black to white. Okay, now on top of that, I'm going to create a bright yellow blob right here. Okay, just a simple bright yellow blob, just like this. Make sure the flow and opacity are at 100. I'm just going to click with the mouse. Okay, nice blob. Okay, now if you double click on the right hand side of the layer, and right now transparency shapes layer is checked. So transparency, if you just look at this, these areas are transparent. This area is filled. So transparency determines the shape of the layer. Okay, it is the transparency which determines that this is round in shape with a lot of feather on it, right? It's a soft round shape. It's transparency that determines that. However, let's change the blend mode to, let's say, color dodge. Okay, it's still a blob. It's still a circular, soft, sun-like thing. However, if you double click on the right hand side of the layer and just uncheck transparency shapes layer, now the shape is not determined by transparency. The shape the shape is determined by the layer which is beneath it. So now if you hit OK, have a look. If I move it to the black side, have a look, the shape decreases, the size decreases. If I move it to the right side, the size increases. And to the extreme right, it becomes so large, it becomes larger than the canvas, right? It becomes infinite if I take it to the whites. So the size, the shape is determined now by the layer which is beneath it, or in other words, it's determined by how it is being projected. Make sense? So that is basically a transparency shape layer in a nutshell, but it really isn't something that you should pay attention to. It's a very technical term, not always useful except for little things like creating a sun sometimes. But other than that, it's not really useful. Let's move on to the next one. The next one, Katie just left a message. So one question per member. Anyway, the next one is from Dirk. Dirk says, I would like to know the best method for quantitative fill of totally empty parts, like panorama merge or after manual geometric transformation. Well, for panorama, I would recommend before you go ahead with quantitative fill, there's also this thing called a boundary warp, which is a little better. If you apply boundary warp and after that you need something, you can go with quantitative when it comes to panorama. But boundary warp really does a good job. So if you want to know more about boundary warp, you can watch this video. This video? Wait. No, it was a panorama video. I remember it. I think it was PiXimperfect panorama. Let me just type it for you. Let me find it for you where it is. Okay. So if I go here, it should be somewhere about here. Okay. So this is the thing. Okay, now in this scene, you see it's in Lightroom actually. You see the boundary warp? Let me increase the video resolution. Okay. You see the boundary warp? It'll just warp in the boundaries to just fit in. So I'm taking a little while to increase it. Have a look. See how amazing it works? So you can try boundary warp. Other places you can try quantitative fill. And with the latest quantitative fill, you have the option to choose where do you want to sample from. So let's say I was doing this photo and we wanted a little more extension in here, just a little bit. And how do we fill it? So this is the empty space. You just select that area, just sip it in a little bit. So don't stay all the way towards the edge because that can lead to some lines. We don't want that. So just dig it in. After you do that, you can go to edit quantitative fill. And for the first pass, you can leave it the way it is, or you can also make sure which areas do you want it to sample from. Definitely, we want it to sample from all of the sky. So to add it, hold Alt key, the Option key, and just add it all of the sky. We obviously don't want to sample from the house right there, or whatever you call it. We definitely want to sample from all of the grounds. And all of this. So let's see how it looks right now. Looks pretty darn good. Hit OK. Not all of it looks nice. Now, you can keep it non-destructive by just having this on a brand new layer. Or for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to merge everything. This down area looks okay. But the up area, there's something wrong with it. So you do that again. So you select that up area. The clouds look like they're repeating. And you select that. And up to this point, things are not okay. So just select the points where things are not okay. And then you try that again. Quantitative fill. And by default, if it looks okay, go forward. Go all for it. Hit OK. Okay, now we are going somewhere with this. Right now, everything looks okay apart from this whole area right there. So we're going to just select that area. And then go to edit, quantitative fill. By the way, we need to merge it first. Edit, quantitative fill. Let's try that again. Let's see what happens to that area. That's not bad. Well, I don't want it to sample from here. But I have no problem if it samples from other areas. Like these. Like all these areas. Like all these areas as well. I have no problem if they sample from it. Let's see. Still, this is looking a little problematic situation right here. What if we try to change the color adaptation default or high? Still not working. None. Default. If we choose scale, okay, let's see if we can fix it. If we choose mirror, can we fix it? You try different alternatives. Rotation, a little bit of rotation, hit OK. Can you fix it? Well, it's a little better, hit OK. See how we're getting slowly and gradually, and then what you can do, you can just merge it first of all. You can use the patch tool to, like, if you want to create a tree branch right in there, I would do that. I would select this. Okay, and then instead of source, we'll choose destination here. Just paste it right here. Boom. Press Control Command D. There we have it. Pretty darn amazing. That's how you do it. Well, you can just exchange little things here and there just to make it not so regular, not two copy of each other, duplicate. Anyway, so this is how you do it. I hope that answers your question. Thank you so much, Dirk, for your question. The next one is from Adrian. Adrian would like to know how to remove purple hue I get in recovered shadows when boosting the exposure. Well, there are lots of videos on removing purple tints or color tints or color. Let me just quickly search that for you. If you have it in exposure, you can use BlendIf to limit it just to the exposure. I don't know why these videos are loading. This is an incognito. I think this is regional. Anyway, remove color cast. Now I'm going to tell you that it's going to be done with hue saturation adjustment layer. This is a video that you can watch on removing color cast. It's a very good video. The best way to fix color cast. One of my favorites. So you can use this. Also, if you only want to remove it in the shadows, you can use BlendIf to limit it just to the shadows. So let me see if I have an image similar to that. I think we edited something similar. Let's see what we can do here. Okay, let's open this one again. Let's say in the shadows we had a tint in this. In this case we don't, but let's say we did. What if we add a little? What if we add a little? But that won't be realistic. Anyway, let's say you want to remove it from the shadows. Here's what you would do. You would create a hue saturation adjustment layer and make sure you select on the shadows of what color it is. So click on the shadows. You just increase the saturation, increase the hue. You would make the range smaller so that the wrong colors of the shadow are selected. Okay, so now as you can see, shadows are mostly selected. So I would now make sure that only the shadow areas are selected. Okay, now you'd bring that back to normal. And then even if you try to just select just the shadows, sometimes other areas might be selected. So I'm going to suggest you the next step. So you can check the hue and the saturation to kind of take that away. If it's purple, you can turn on the hue or the saturation to take it away. So if I want a little less saturation and I want it to be a little more magenta-ish, okay. So this is the color I want for the shadows. That's what you can use to remove it. Now, all you have to do is decrease the saturation. Anyway, now I only want it in the shadows, so double click on the right hand side of the layer. You would go to BlendIf and take this away from the bright areas by taking the slider of the underlying layer from right to left, just like this. Now, it's only affecting the shadows. Now, it's very harsh. As you can see, hold the Alt key, the Option key, click on it to break it apart and make it a little softer. Now, as you can see, only the shadows are a little magenta. So I'm adding something. You can use the same technique to remove something. So here's the before, here's the after. Just add a little magenta on the shadows. So you can use the same technique. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. I hope that answered your question. Anne has a question. Can edits be made to previous layers once we hit Control, Alt, Shift, and E, merge them and and edit, or do we have to redo the process on a new layer? If you create a stamp visible layer at the top, the layers beneath, you can make changes to that, but they won't be visible because that's an opaque layer. And then if you want to make changes to it, you would have to do the changes and create a stamp visible layer again, right? I explained this in the first question. So I think Dirk already answered your question right here. I really appreciate when members help out each other. Thank you so much, Dirk, for doing that. That's very, very kind, polite, and nice of you. The next question is from Oscars. How to create light effects if there are many layers on a new layer on top of the reds on an empty layer? Okay, so if you want to create a light effect on an empty layer, you have to create it on a gray layer. Photoshop does not allow using a filter, lighting effects. Okay, so let's see what we have here. I have an image for you, and let's just drag it and drop it into Photoshop. So by lighting effects, it's a very cool effect. I've made a video about it, and that is if you go to filter, I think it's under render, lighting effects. They're pretty cool spotlight effects and different kind of effects that you can apply and really work with in Photoshop. So this is a pretty cool spotlight effect. And let's say you wanted it, you can definitely move it, just increase the size, do whatever you want with it. Okay, so this is a cool effect, hit OK. But it doesn't allow you to apply that effect on an empty layer. All right. It can apply it on a smart object, but not on an empty layer. If you have a lot of layers on it, and on top, if you want to apply a light effect, there are two options, my friend, two options. So Oscars, the two options is you create a merged layer at the top, you create a stamp visible layer at the top, convert that into a smart object, and then apply it. That way it'll be a little non-destructive. But if you want to apply it on an empty layer, it doesn't work that well as it works on an image. However, there's a workaround. The workaround is this. You create a brand new layer, you fill it with neutral gray, so, or Control-Shift-N, Command-Shift-N, change the blend mode to overlay, check fill with overlay neutral color, and then go to filter, and you can also convert it into a smart filter. Then go to filter, lighting effects. Now you can do the same thing in here, hit OK, change the blend mode to overlay. So it isn't quite good, I'm gonna tell you that though. You can also try here. If you choose a screen, it isn't that good. I'll tell you that. It isn't that good. So you can also try it on a black layer if you're into that. You can also try it on a white layer. But really, if I can do it for you. So if I do it on a white layer, and if I do the same lighting effects in here, you can change it to multiply and create a similar effect. But you won't get that shine in here. So your best option here is after you have a lot of layers in this, let's say you have a curves adjustment layer, let's say you have a text layer, let's say you have different elements, at the top create a stamp visible layer, then go to filter, convert for smart filters, hit OK. And then on this you apply the lighting effect by going to filter, render, and then the lighting effects. You apply that there, whatever the lighting effect is, you hit OK. Now, once you do apply the lighting effects, let's say you want to make some changes to the curves here. So what do? Curves and a lot of things. So let's say you want to make changes to the curves before applying the lighting effects. You turn that off. You make changes to the curves. Let's say you want it to be a little bit darker or just like this. Wanted a little fade in there. Anyway, once you do make the changes, here's what you do. You create another stamp visible layer. You again convert it into a smart object. And just as we did with the liquify, just drag it and drop it into this one. The lighting effects filter. Just drop it and it will be replicated. So that's the way to keep it non-destructive. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Claudia says, I would like to go over typical mistakes newbies Wacom users make and how to avoid them. I try to alt-click using my Wacom tablet and it doesn't work when sampling or cloning or healing. It does work on my Dell trackpad. I click tapping, pressing the pen and pressing the alt key either in the laptop or Wacom, but it doesn't work. Okay, so if you ask me personally, if I try to sample something, if I take a brush and I'm on a brand new layer, if I hold the alt key or the option key, right, the pen is on the top and I just tap, or if you just draw as well, it'll just sample. There's no problem in there. It should sample. If it's not sampling, there's a problem in configuration of the Wacom tablet. It's not a mistake, trust me. The key to not having mistake is having your Wacom tablet set up properly. And I've made a video both for Windows and both for Mac on how to do that. And I've made it in partnership with Wacom, so you can watch that. I would highly recommend that you watch it. If you're still having problems, let me know. So that is the video. Let me quickly find that out for you. Wacom setup retouching PiXimperfect. So this is the one, how to set up a Wacom tablet for retouching. I would highly recommend that you watch this. It'll really help you set it up properly. And after that, if you're still having issues, then maybe it's a problem with your tablet or the configuration or the software is not updated. In that case, I cannot help unless I have access to your computer. The next question is from Alex Guevara. I hope that answers your question. If it does not, by the way, Claudia, please let me know. Please message me on Patreon. I really want to solve this for you. The next one is from Alex. Alex says, "Hi Unmesh, I recently took this portrait of my two friends. I realized that I didn't place my lighting properly and therefore the female subject's face has a bit of a shadow. What is the best way to lighten up her face a little bit?" Well, let's look at the face. I have your photo right here. Let's drag it and drop it into Photoshop. Well, the easiest way to do this, let me tell you, man, you got to create a curves adjustment layer, brighten it up until the face looks okay. It looks okay right now, but the highlights are blown out, no problem. You double click on the right hand side of the layer and we want to remove it from the highlights. So take the slider of the underlying layer from right to left. Obviously, you would want to hold the Alt key or the Option key, click on it to break it apart, take it all the way apart, hit OK. Select the mask, press Ctrl or Command I, take the brush, and then just paint on the subject with white as the foreground color. There you have it. Alright, there you have it. Now obviously you don't want that much of a difference in the lighting. A little bit on this subject won't hurt as well because you want similarity in there. And then you can just decrease the opacity. For this case, 68 or 65. How do you feel about that? Then you can adjust it according to your own specifications, but that's how you do it. Here's the before, here's the after. Much better, much matching, much better couple. All right, there you go. And I hope I answered your question. If they're a couple, I don't know if they're a couple, but they're your friends. Anyway, thank you so much, really, for submitting all these wonderful questions, and please do keep a lookout for the next Patreon Q&A session. And if the next time when I'm doing a session, I'll be directly messaging you. I always directly message you anytime we're doing a Q&A session on Patreon. The notification goes to your registered email. There's also a post on PiXimperfect Patreon family, Patreon only Facebook group as well. It'll be marked as an announcement. So two things, keep a lookout at your emails. I'll also send you an email, number one. I'll also post this on Facebook, PiXimperfect Patreon family. So please stay updated and you will have plenty of time, 2 to 3 days, or in some cases 5 to 6 days as well, to submit your questions. Thank you so much again. Thank you so much to our PiXimperfect YouTube family as well. I really am thankful to you for staying together for this video. I appreciate it. I hope you learned something from it. Thank you so much to all of you. I'll see you in my next one. Till then, stay tuned and make sure that you keep creating.